How's everyone doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 61. Tonight, I have three special guests. Tonight, I'm speaking with Nathan Martin, Michael Laughlin, and Paul Nowoczynski from the amazing metallic tech hardcore band Creation is Crucifixion. We'll be speaking about Chapter, Abnegation, Nathan's company, Deep Local, the hacking of Nintendo Game Boy, you name it. Just one of my favorite all-time late 90s bands, early 2000. I got to tape the whole set up in Rochester, New Hampshire, and then I went and saw them in Lawrence, Mass. the night after. So I'm going to grab Michael right now. Just waiting to connect here. I accepted the request. Hopefully everything's updated on your end. We'll get this thing working. See if that works. Mike, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Trying to connect, Mike, to you. Saying you're unable to join. You might have to update your Instagram so that I can connect with you. Because it's just little technical difficulties here. We'll get this working, though. We're going to make this work somehow. I might have to jump off and on. It's not letting me accept. I see the request, but let's see here. Nathan, how you doing?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me? Oh, lost you for a sec. There you are. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Yeah, everything seems good now. Oh, he froze. Yeah, it's like intermittently freezing, but
Yeah, I'm trying to get Michael on here, but I don't know if he has to update his Instagram because it won't let him join.
oh, weird.
Yeah, it says declined.
Huh.
Maybe you can invite him. If you press the
I
camera.
will attempt to.
Yeah, the camera with the plus sign.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It might be because he didn't update the app, so it could be like not allowing him to join.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. We've got a phone. Yeah.
I don't know what he's using to get on either. He might be using like a laptop that.
I know. Mike's probably still using his phone from the 90s. Come on, Mike. Let me see. I just got a text. I don't know. If I keep cutting out, my internet's been kind of crappy this week, so I can move around somewhere.
Yeah. I haven't seen Paul yet. Oh, there he is. Let's see if I can connect with him.
I haven't seen Paul in a while. Mike is watching. Mike, try.
Paul, if you can send a request to one of us, maybe we can connect with you that way. We'll make this. We're gonna make this work.
I know. I'm trying to think. How can I call Mike?
Let me see if I can connect Paul. Hold on. All right. I sent Paul the invite. Let's see if it works.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I can actually just call Mike and listen to some audio from him. We can real time mix our audio. I don't know if it'll work with Instagram Live too.
Yeah, I just sent it. Now I can't hear you at all. I can't hear your audio at all now. Paul's unable to join too. Yeah, they have to use the app, not the PC. Nathan, can you hear me? Let me jump off and I'll jump on and then come back on again because I can't hear your audio.
Sorry, it's because I was calling Mike and trying to get him to connect, but it's not. My cleverness was not clever enough. It defaults to the phone audio instead of Instagram audio, so it automatically mutes me.
Yeah, if they're on their PC, they have to go to the app itself. That's probably why.
Yeah, they're trying like a website or something.
Yeah.
Instead of the app. Gotta download the app.
Well, I mean, I want to thank you anyways for taking time out to talk to me. We'll do this until we can get these guys on.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure they're downloading. I'm sure at least Paul's downloading. Mike's kind of trying to figure it out.
But like I said, I appreciate it. Sundays are always family day, and I appreciate you taking time out to do this. It's for me doing it, and I was pumped and stoked to get to talk to you guys. Because Creation was one of my favorite bands back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like I said, I got to see you guys a couple times up here in New Hampshire. So once in Rochester, New Hampshire, and then I think you guys played Lawrence, Mass. The next night, and we drove back down there and saw that too.
Wow. Yeah, those were really fun times. I think about them a lot. Like it's just not like that anymore. I have some like younger coworkers that are in bands and stuff, and I just think about like, you knew everyone in every town. I would book, some of our shows and tours and stuff. So I just had a journal with like, people's first names and phone numbers in whatever city. And it was like, genres weren't even that big a deal. You get on bills with all kinds of different bands, and it was just so cool. We're never gonna have anything like that again, I don't think.
Usually when I first start these discussions off, I usually ask, what got you into punk and hardcore, and what were you listening to before punk and hardcore?
I've always listened to a lot of different music, and I know Mike and Paul, I could probably answer for them, but for me, I was a weirdo. Why did I get into it? I mean, I think I first started to listen to alternative bands through friends, older siblings that were in college, and that's how I learned, bands I got into, like, stuff like Dinosaur Jr. and early, like, Sub Pop style stuff, and I started to subscribe to a bunch of catalogs where I'd get stuff through the mail from, like, Burning Airlines and random distributors, and I just collect 7 inches and records. And in Pittsburgh there was a really cool shop back then called Ides that you come down to and just, like, learn about a lot of music from that record shop. And I can't even remember all my early stuff, like Dead Kennedys, and I had that Nazi Punks Fuck Off 7 inch and all that kind of early stuff that got me into it. But the scene, really, for me, getting into, like, a music scene, that was what was more important to me than music. And I think locally we were lucky because Mike and I are from the suburbs of Pittsburgh, in this town that I never enjoy going back to, Greensburg, which is like Westmoreland County, PA, 85% Republican, Trump country, anti-vax country. And growing up there was difficult. And getting into, like, local music scene where there were bands that were playing around then. And that's really what I think got us into like hardcore as we knew it, which was seeing bands like, even Paul's band Abnegation was hugely influential, I know, for Mike and I. Mike I met because I asked around at school for, like, a drummer, and Mike will remember the name of the girl. Some girl that I kind of knew was like, I got this friend Mike Laughlin, he's really good. And I remember going over to Mike's house. I had no talent at all. I just wanted to be in a band. And Mike was just incredible even back then when he was like 15 or 16 years old. And so, I mean, I think going to local shows, all the bands, like, from around that in Greensburg were actually, like, some pretty great bands. And then, coming out of the scene, a lot of our friends that ended up in, like, that band Zao, some other kids ended up that band Juliana Theory, which is not, arguably not a punk band and not something I listened to, but I'm really, proud that they made it out. But we were into bands like Rugburn, like bands that were never kind of heard of.
Yeah.
Just local, bands that were around town, Potholder, Davenport, 10 Feet Tall, God's Green Apples, like all these cool bands that you would see locally. And they really just set the stage. And then in hardcore, it was like, there was this band called 187 that became Transit that, played a lot of, kind of like sludgy, slow metalcore stuff. And we really were influenced by that.
Now, were you, I know skateboarding kind of bridges the punk. Were you a skateboarder at that time?
Yeah. I grew up as a skateboarder and, like, art kid. And I think it's just all that scene of, like, again, I can't relate to kids now, but back then it was just, being called freak at school and getting thrown into lockers, and high school was the worst. It was awful. And, just my friends were all interesting, and they were, our artists or skateboarders or whatever. And, we always hung out together. And I think I'm really lucky to have, the friends that I met then. And then going past that with the band, it was, like, really exciting to meet all the people we met through through hardcore and through just playing around the country. A lot, I wouldn't say, like, I'm in touch regularly with people, but it is cool when there's people, like, you can talk to 10 years later and it's like time never passed. I think that's a pretty incredible feeling. And when you go through that era, I'll never have that again. You have that era of your life when it's just, like, super informative. Your eyes are wide open. I was like, I was vegan, and I think, learning all about animal liberation was really exciting to me. And just, I was a nerd, and, but I wasn't, like, a nerd that wanted to be academic. I was a very strange person. So I think I found this, kind of culture that I really, really vibe with. It was like, it was okay to be, like, smart and nerdy, but also artsy, and it was a lot of fun. And I loved everything that surrounded being in a band. Like, I loved, graphic design and making albums and booking tours and, like, the brand, all the stuff that surrounded being in a band. Since I couldn't actually play music, I was lucky enough to just find people that were really, really talented.
Yeah. Now, what made you want to get into a band that you actually played out in live?
Yeah, well, our first band, I have no idea. So Mike and our first band was called 12 Cup Drip Filter Automatic Coffee Maker, which was shortened to 12 Cup. And we were truly like a local Greensburg band. We were like 16 years old, and we would play at. Oh, someone's joining. Oh, there he is.
Let me turn off the laptop, I guess.
Yeah, we got. I'm
Throw it on
talking.
the
I'm
ground.
talking 12 Cup. 12 Cup.
Oh, no shit.
And we would play at like these local venues like Illusions, and we would like sell demo tapes in class at school. It was
Jam and skate.
yeah, jam and skate, like skateboard while you're playing shows at Bell Vernon, PA. But it was truly local, and then started to book shows for out of town bands like Catharsis and stuff. And I think that really was eye opening for us. I don't want to speak for you, Mike, but I think like just starting to see that this was a thing you could do, and I think we did our first like real tour that summer after I graduated high school, I think. And I think you were still in high school, Mike. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I was like 17, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we started playing out of town when we were all still in high school, and that was like, you know, the 5 or 6 hour drives to wherever. And, but that was all playing as Chapter. So it went from 12 Cup to Chapter to Creationist Crucifixion.
And Creation is like the first couple songs were Chapter songs, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We, I don't really remember the transition super well. Mike probably does. I think there was moments. So I can say this because I'm friends with him again. But Tim Krupar was our bass player at the time, like a close friend. I think Tim like kicked me out of the band, and then I kicked him out of the band. I don't even know what happened. But Tim's very awesome. I don't know. I'm usually the problem. So I don't know what happened. But somehow we at some point just became Creationist Crucifixion. Oh, Paul's joining too. Oh man,
Oh,
what's
shit.
this?
I got the wrong camera. I gotta flip it around.
Yeah,
Dude,
good. No, you joined at the right time because I think like
I can't hear
Paul
anyone
was
right
really
now.
instrumental. Can you hear me, Mike? Mike, can you hear me? Oh no.
I can hear you.
There we
Okay,
go.
good. Maybe it's Mike's end.
This thing, it's like the controls for the app come up like seconds later after they're actually needed. I guess I was giving up too quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean I think we when we toured with Abnegation, that was pretty huge, and it's when, you know, I think Mike and Paul and I got to spend a lot of time together too, and I think when we had the chance to kind of form Creation out of that stuff, it was great. And Scott Mellinger, who's now in Zao, was also just an incredible guitarist, and you can see that now. But he was just, I mean, really a talented group of people between Paul, Mike, and Adam at the time. Like we were, I think, overly qualified to be playing music in the scene we were playing in. I think I probably brought it down a notch because I had no talent. So for me, it was just all about you know, the lyrics and the stuff I wanted to talk about and the things I was reading about at the time.
Now what got you into the in or write stuff as being a young teenager, early 20s? What kind of that for both of you guys?
Yeah, I'll let those guys talk.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I think, yeah, how you were cutting out a little bit on my end, but what I gathered from your question was, you know, how did we get involved with animal rights and things like that? Yeah, that's a really good question because I was dedicated to that for quite a long time, and I guess ideologically I still share a lot of, have a lot of those feelings, even though I don't practice it as religiously or as strictly as I used to. But I mean, it really goes back to my earliest days of going to shows. I mean, I was a metalhead, and when I first started going to shows, it was really eye-opening for me, seeing kids from other cities that were older than me, obviously had some sort of alternative lifestyle. They also had, you know, way different politics than what I was used to hearing around my place, and I was really fascinated by it and intrigued by it, and I was like, you know, a blank palette, you know, or blank canvas ready to be filled up with, you know, all of these ideas, and you know, things like animal rights, like alternative transportation, like all of these things really resonated with me, you know, right from the get-go. You know, I thought most of the literature that they were putting out was actually pretty compelling, and you know, I think that it meshed with what sort of the wrongs and things that injustices and incongruities that we saw in our daily lives as kids. But really, those things were never really addressed to us by school or by our parents. And so these alternative sources of information were coming in. They were filling in a lot of the blanks for me. And, I was ready to jump on it. I was really happy that, there was a scene around it. So all of a sudden, everyone we were hanging out with was vegetarian. So, we'd go to other cities and people would cook food. And it really, one of the best parts about it was, just making me appreciate different flavors and textures and different ethnicities of food. And it was, from that, I can never really pay that back. That was a huge bonus for me, But I think that's how I got into it.
I think the first thing that I heard was the chapter Abnegation split between both bands. I was blown away at the time. Earth Crisis was starting to really hit with everybody too, and I feel like that wave was really exciting back then. And I think a lot of people kind of got straight edge and being just as a friend, and then they kind of got out of it after the bands kind of disappeared a little bit. Do you feel the same way, or?
You cut out a little bit at the end. Can you repeat the last little part? Unless Mike and Paul want to answer.
It cut out for me too, unfortunately.
Yeah. Basically just saying straight edge was kind of a trend for some people. Is it? I think that was what it was back then. What did it transition for you guys all as you went forward?
Okay, I'll let you. We probably all have different answers for this question. So Nathan, you could go, and then I can add in my 2 cents. And if Mike wants to,
I'm basically back to straight edge now. I think. Yeah, I think that.
Me too.
For me, I think I went through some bad years after being straight edge. And I deal with we all have stuff, but I'm diagnosed bipolar. I was diagnosed when I was 20, and I had different ways of coping with that. And I found, as I've gotten older, that exercise helps and alcohol does not help. So for me, it's totally a personal choice now. But back then, it was hugely political for me. I think it was also, it's tough when you're a part of an underground scene, and I have a lot of respect for younger people now, and I try to see their perspective, because I think about how I thought when I was 18 or 19 years old, and you get passionately involved, and like Paul's saying, your influence, your sphere of influence is relatively small, but it is kind of worldly, and you feel you're learning so quickly. But I saw my opinions changing very quickly, and that's one thing I used to always complain a little bit about, is I think it's a strong character trait of humans that we change our opinions and perspectives over time. That's the one thing about hardcore back then that used to drive me nuts, this idea of someone's done this for 20 years or 10 years or been straight edge for 15 years. It's I think it's about, learning from new experiences and meeting new people and evolving. Now for straight edge, depending on how that manifests, but lots of people have different relationships, to substance abuse or alcohol abuse. And I think, I reward people who are able to commit to something like that for a long period of time. But I think all my other beliefs, have always and continue to kind of evolve and change based on what I'm reading and who I'm talking to. So I am perpetually, hopefully changing.
Yeah, I was probably more of the straight edge advocate early on, but for me, it was probably Iggy from Abnegation that got me most into this. And at the time, Iggy and I went to the same high school. And he was the one that started bringing me to shows and things. It was very similar to how I was introduced to animal rights ideas. The straight edge ideas were right there. Really it was about sort of collectivism and I don't want to say a gang, but, having a crew of people that, would hang out together, have each other's backs, go to shows. It was useful at times where, we'd go out on a Friday night, and if there were a bunch of football players at the place we were hanging out with, they wouldn't mess with us because there were, 10 of us, and, not all of us were big guys, but we'd have some older guys too that, had dealt with this crap when they were our age, and they had our backs because we were in the scene. So, I don't want to say it was like a matter of survival, because that definitely wasn't the case. But, there was just, to me, it was about belonging with a group. I didn't really have any interest in drinking or doing anything else at that age anyway. So it wasn't, admittedly, I wasn't sacrificing a whole bunch of things. It wasn't like, I want to go drink a case of beer this weekend, or, smoke pot. I just, later on, I wanted to do that stuff. But when I was in my early 20s and, very early 20s, and my late teens, I didn't really, I wanted to play in my bands. I wanted to, I like being in school. I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to play shows, and that was pretty much the agenda. So straight edge was simple. Later on for me, the veganism part became a lot more important than the straight edge part. So I think to Nathan's point, my ideas started to evolve or change, whether they evolved for the better or worse, I don't know. But they definitely changed over time, and that's when the straight edge part sort of lost interest for me.
I asked because I heard To Dream of Autumn played with you guys for a weekend or so, and there was a lot of drinking involved that I was told about, and that's why I asked this question.
Probably. I'll say that something I've learned about myself is that, and I think this is true of a lot of people. I think a lot of smart people ended up in hardcore and end up in other, underground rap, like basically genres that are outside of the normal. I think you just tend to collect these people that don't quite fit, and they're generally more interesting. But I will say, like, they are also people, and I know this about myself, that tend to go to extremes. Like, I'm not very good at dabbling in kind of anything. So I tended to take it a little bit too far, whatever it is, which is why, I have to be careful what I do. And
that's everyone in this band.
Yeah. I mean, my grandfather did, die of cirrhosis of the liver, was an alcoholic. It definitely, runs in the blood, along with bipolar, which is genetic too. And I think that, I just think those situations, there were a lot of out of control behavior, and behavior that I'm smiling about now, but I talk about it a lot. I have 2 children now, and I sometimes in the past have like maybe glorified, past drug use and things like that. And I don't want that for my children. I don't want them to think like how awesome it was, some of the stupid stuff, we did. And Paul and Mike, you guys all know some of the stupid stuff we did. I'm lucky that I never ended up in jail, and I'm lucky that I'm alive. And I have friends that, a number of them, like we all do, that are not. So I don't know. Yeah, there was probably a lot of that.
I wanted to ask you, so with Chapter going, how did that kind of blend in? How did it work that you guys were going to change the creation of Crucifixion? And also, was the self-titled set first thing?
So you keep cutting out a little bit for me, but Mike, you haven't talked. You should answer, because I actually don't even remember how.
Paul joined Chapter, then I think that was just a couple months, and we kind of took a break for a while. We did our indie rock project.
Oh, Reason for the Neutron Bomb.
Yeah, and then with Brad from Passover, actually.
Our emo band.
And then I think it was like right around the time I was graduating. Yeah, like the next year we started Creation.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was, but it was basically like all the same people, right? It was just Tim, not Tim, right?
Except for Tim, I think.
Right.
We Todd on bass.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before you guys hopped on. I think there was like some moment, because I can remember being in like college at my dorm. I think like Tim tried to kick me out of the band or something, and then maybe I protested the election and won the overturn. Yeah. Maybe I
don't know if I even heard that stuff.
I don't know.
Writing was kind of like dragging on a bit. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have a pretty bad memory. But it was also just it was a different band, and I think we were growing. And Creationist Crucifixion actually was originally supposed to be Creationist Crucifixion. But a little bit of alliteration there. It became Creation is Crucifixion. And then we recorded that first 7-inch, Sins of Our Fathers or something. Yeah.
Should have reviewed the discography before this.
Yeah, the Sins of Our Fathers 7-inch. I remember like photocopying the inserts and Yeah, even the Abnegation Chapter split, I remember there's funny stories about that. Paul came to campus at CMU, and we would apply a Photoshop filter to an image and then leave for 3 hours, wait for it to render, hope the computer didn't crash or the jazz drive didn't break. And then Paul had access to the Silicon Graphics lab that I thought was awesome back then. Where you'd show up, and that's where all the web pages were. Paul's the one that taught me originally web programming. But I don't know, the 7-inch, I have no idea how that came about. I don't remember.
Now, Paul wasn't on that.
No.
The Throne, Hour, right? That was Paul.
I don't think so. Yeah. Do you remember the Throne or Devour?
Yeah, Paul was on that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the
right? First one.
Paul did the is that the 2-song one, right?
Yeah, that Sins of Our Father 7-inch was actually Chapter.
The 2-song one is Chapter, which had Paul on it. It was re-recorded Chapter,
Right.
and then it became Creation.
Yeah, we shouldn't have done that, but sorry, that was my fault.
Oops.
I apologize.
And then
Was it?
yeah, and then the what was the next record after that? Was it the Throne or Devour? Was that a
The Master's Tools? I'm trying to remember what 7-inch
Master's
that
Tools
is.
will never dismantle the Master's house. That's a good phrase. The was that on King of the Monsters?
I think that might have been their first release of ours.
Yeah, Mike Gens was awesome. So Mike, I met through the mail. Basically, I was just a super fan of his label, and I think I sent him a demo of Chapter, and he wanted to put something out, and then Creation started. So that's how we started to do stuff with King of the Monsters. But such a cool person and such a cool label still.
That 7-inch didn't come out after in Silico too, so it didn't look like the first release.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Reversal of Man was on, right? Too?
Yep. Yeah. Puritan Reverse Man did a split. Locust Man is the Bastard split. 10-inch. Just cool stuff. Mike put a lot of money into his releases, and back then there was a lot of crappy Kinko's photocopied insert releases. So I thought that was really cool.
And on top of that,
Man, you keep cutting out for me. How I missed that.
Oh, I know.
I was thinking of Monsters, the anniversary, the 20th anniversary, how was that?
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it's great to see all those people. Vocally, it was a struggle for me, but
Yeah, it was probably, it was funny for the instrument players. The weird thing about that show, I think we all practiced on our own because we didn't have a lot of rehearsal time before that. And we'd actually done a reunion show in Pittsburgh, 1 or 2 years before that?
We're historic for really poorly planned reunion shows. Yeah, we played Small Fest outside. No one.
Adam and I did a month of practice together, I think.
Yeah, we played 2 random reunion shows that were not advertised in Pittsburgh.
I don't know. For me, I thought it was interesting because we're so much older now. We play a lot slower, but actually that means that we were a lot tighter. Which, this was a lesson that I wish we would have embraced when we were actually touring. Just slow down, just let we don't have to fly. Just make sure we get all the notes in. So that was the one thing I remember about that reunion show. Besides seeing everyone and playing with everybody. I mean, the PA and the sound system was great. But it felt like we played our material better than we actually played it when we played every day, which is a bit strange.
I was really glad we were able to release that. Probably the best recording we ever had of playing live was that Geneva, Switzerland cassette tape off the soundboard that floated around for a decade, and then we managed to release that a few years ago on Robotic Empire, and I was really glad to see that because I think we used to get a lot of crap for our recordings. I think we know we were pretty bad. We tried to embrace it and make it seem like it was intentional, but we just probably weren't very good at recording and never really invested in recording. And but that release actually captured what it was like for the band live, because I think live you guys always played, everything was faster. You guys played twice speed of all of our recordings faster. And it was just, I don't know. I thought that live we were a lot different than the recordings, not just in quality, but just in speed and how.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that, you know, generally, I mean, for me, even if we weren't like running around and stuff, to me, I was like always super amped up, and I know Mike was. So really, the
Yeah, you
goal
could
of any
never keep
live
up.
creation show was keeping up with Mike.
Paul would get angry at Mike because Mike would play too fast.
Like, come on, man. You know, but then you couldn't be that mad because it's like, well, Mike's blasting through this part. So, I mean, if he can play at blast beat that fast, you know, I shouldn't be complaining about not being able to, you know, hit the last two notes in the measure. But, you know, so it was a bit impressive, but, you know, like, you know, maybe we could have.
Yeah, and live, I mean, I remember this. I mean, Mike was that drummer, and probably still is, but Mike was that drummer that everyone would just like sit and stare at. You know, every band we toured with, everyone that played. Mike to me was just like above and beyond a lot of the drummers we saw in hardcore bands. He was like on a different level, and that paid off. You know, he ended up in Cattle, and he ended up in the bands he's in now. But I mean, Mike, isn't your dad was like a prog drummer too? I mean, you have like a history.
A little bit, yeah. He was into some '70s prog, and just I had a double bass kit kind of growing up to tinker with. So that kind of helped out a lot.
I think what really helped you out was marching band.
Yeah, marching.
You sort of had this like snare. That's where the blast beat come. Like Mike's right. That's like one thing about Mike that I don't know if a lot of people appreciated. But when Mike's would hit the snare on a blast beat, it was actually louder than his normal snare hit.
Yeah,
and this is like never the case with any like hardcore metal drummer playing a blast beat. The blast beat's always much lighter.
Yeah, softer.
You know, when Mike went on that blast beat, it was like this, like I don't know, this like. Yeah, I mean, you know, you think the guy has like a machine in his wrist. It's like.
You still do that, Mike? Or you getting too old?
What? Oh, I'm in a band called Auto Replicant right now. That's probably the closest to creation type playing I've done. That's like a 3-year-old band. I know, like pandemic wise, we've only practiced like a few months out of this, but yeah, it's cool. Getting back to it a little bit while I still can, I guess.
Now, Mike, what got you into playing drums?
Oh, and just my dad having a kid around, and you're like 6 years old, and like, what else are you gonna do? And like, yeah, watching like, you know, like I had favorite bands when I was a kid. Like, was kind of into music. Even I think I had like a Duran Duran like single or something when I was like 5. Like I would pick out music I like.
Yeah, Mike was in bands before we joined bands. You were in.
I jammed with
Russ, right?
Russ Cogdell from Zayo. Yeah, we used to just jam a lot of Metallica in like early high school.
He lived down the street, Fort Allen.
Yeah, right down the street from each other. He would just walk down after school, like every other day.
Now, what was the first lead singer of Zayo? What was his name?
Can you lean forward a little bit? I don't know why it's cutting out.
The first lead singer of Zayo?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, that's like way back.
Yeah, because when Zayo came to
the
town,
first Zayo band is not this current Zayo.
Yeah,
band,
it's not even the same line. It was like there was the drummer Jesse who kind of started the band, and I think they like, you know, I'll admit I was a hater. I was back then. It was a Christian band, and I was pretty anti-Christian bands. Still am, but and they're not now. But that band totally changed. They came to Greensburg, and like the whole band became kids from Greensburg, right? Was Brett the singer for Zayo at some point? Brett Detter or no?
Yes,
I think he was before he was in Juliana Theory.
And Marty, I think Marty was in that
Lund,
lineup.
he's still in it. Yeah, he's still in it.
Yeah, and I can't remember if Russ was in that lineup. He may have.
I don't think he was until later, but
okay.
Basically, when Scott, yeah, like.
Yeah,
I remember. I think the last chapter shows with them, and there's somebody has a video of that.
Yeah, and then Jeff Gratz on drum, but like Scott is an incredible guitarist too. I mean, not taking anything away from Paul, but I think we were both. I mean,
I'm
Paul,
fine.
No, I mean it was just you know, Scott. You should talk to Scott sometime because he's interesting too. I mean, our first, you know, we practiced in like this shed with a kerosene heater off his house, and having practice spaces also is like it's difficult to get people that were willing, or family members that were willing to let you do that stuff. And, you know,
but his parents were completely 100% supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. he always had nice equipment. I mean, they gave him they had like a garage that they had built, and they had built a loft on top of the garage. And basically that was their practice studio. And I'm sure it drove him nuts because, I mean, One thing about creation early on is we would practice a lot. I mean,
yeah, we practiced.
we really liked hanging out, and we would practice and practice and practice. So it would be 3-4 nights a week. We'd be out there, for 3 hours. But he lived in kind of a remote location, so I don't think that I don't remember there being too many neighbors.
Yeah,
I'm sure there were a handful of them, but there were neighbors on his street, but it wasn't like a packed street. Yeah, like a packed suburban street.
Yeah. I only asked that because in my hometown in Sandown, New Hampshire, that lead singer was the pastor of the church in Sandown, the first lead singer of Zayo. And he used to have shows in the church basement, but it was Christian shows where you couldn't swear. If you wanted to play downstairs, you couldn't use any swears. If your band swore, you got kicked out.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. I'm still a big atheist, so I'm not.
One Zayo show at like a church bus came to like Millville Industrial Theater. Like a bus
really?
full
Yeah.
Zayo and creation.
I know.
Show.
I mean, but that was an interesting situation. But at the same time, I mean, I was happy that those kids probably were pretty isolated, and this was like the one time that they could come out and like let off their steam and just they were so stoked to be at a show. I mean, but like it was hard not to feed off of their excitement. They didn't care about it. Like they were like all about Zayo, which was totally cool. But it made me realize that I've been in the scene for a while by that time, and I probably took a lot of it for granted. And here are these kids that probably don't get to go to shows very often, and this one opportunity there. You come to Millvale Industrial Theater, which is a super awesome venue, and and they're like, holy cow! Like their eyes are like like this big, and they were so stoked. I don't know, it was fun.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to ask about that just because it's a funny story in my hometown too. So, and I also saw Zayo up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, when Fire Brings Rest. Is that the name of the album? That's what they.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I know Brett Detter's. I think dad was a pastor or something. I don't know. Brett probably doesn't have positive things to say about me, but I think it's. Greensburg is a very. I mean, the Westmoreland County. They talk about it in the news every time there's an election. I was saying before you guys got on, it is 85% Trump. It is white evangelical. Mike, you go back there more than me. That's a place where even like middle pandemic, you walk into the store and there's people with no masks on. I mean, that's not vaccination territory.
Going to Walmart was like Pac-Man, that was like ducking down aisles, trying to get away from the ghosts, I guess.
Yeah, and Paul mentioned this, but it is. I think this is a genre thing because I talk to kids now. I feel like it's not the same, but the era we grew up and how you probably part of this too. But like, I mean, and it's not like I'm a white heterosexual male, but high school sucked. I mean, it was like there was like a jocks versus freaks. Like the morning walking around school was the worst. Like whether or not I was going to see someone that was going to make fun of me or push me into a locker, like it sucked. So I mean, finding a group of people that were there. I mean, like Mike does. Go to Green Gate or Westmoreland Mall or whatever. You're afraid you're going to get beaten up by someone. It's like it's stupid, but you lived with it when you were 16 years old. That was your entire world, and it sucked. And so I mean, finding a group of people that felt like they supported one another was huge. And when you're in even Greensburg, I mean, our high school was, I don't know how big your school was, Paul, but I mean, our class was like 600 or 700 people. So the high school was like thousands. And, in that school, there's 5 or 10 kids that, you want to spend time with out of like 2,500, which is crazy. But, and then honestly, if you kind of currently go to Greensburg and visit my high school alum, you will, I'm sure none of them are listening, but you will see that not much has changed. But
I know that the albums, you guys have said that they're kind of muddled and not the greatest recordings. But I still have In Silico right.
All right,
and that's one of my favorite you guys did. Automata is definitely one of my favorites as well. What are you guys' favorite things that you put out with such an extensive catalog? What's all of your guys' favorite thing that you put out as creation?
Drumming wise, like the child as audience stuff. Like that was the crazier. More, I don't know, for me, it was more fun.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, I thought that was those. I mean, we composed. I'm trying to think of any. I think that was all stuff that we wrote with Adam.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
believe there was any material that came pre-Adam into those songs. But we were a little older
Mhm.
by that point. I mean, at least me and Adam. But I don't know, what were we? Probably 25. Like we'd already tried our hands at like writing a bunch of songs and stuff. Adam brought a lot of really interesting
Yeah.
concepts into into our music writing, and to me, those songs, there's from a musical perspective, because obviously, like lyrically, is a whole nother thing that's really really strong on that record. But musically, there's some parts that are really really simple and catchy and just heavy and fun, and then there's other parts that I really think I go back and listen to them now, and there's some really interesting chord structures, and I haven't heard anything ever else that really sounds like it. So I do think that we hit a chord of originality with those songs. I mean, if I have one regret about it was that we didn't write 5 more songs
Yeah.
in that same period. But volume of material was always a struggle for this band, and
Yep.
for whatever reasons. But for me, Childless Audience was like the sort of pinnacle release.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that was the most, the best example of for me of what like I think we were trying to accomplish. I think both musically and then creatively. I think because there's a lot we were doing as a band that I think we were really proud of, and I think that talking about reverse engineering and talking about critical theory and stuff that I think is extremely relevant today. At a time when a lot of people weren't, reading Carl Sagan. So I think it's interesting to like see. I don't know. I just think that like that was the best chance that we really had to say like we're gonna talk about theory. We're gonna talk about practice. We made a CD-ROM. We gave people instructions on how to hack Game Boys. Like we had practical examples. I mean, we were really talking about reverse engineering for a real reason. And I think that. And then we worked with Critical Art Ensemble, who was one of my mentors as an art group. And later, a movie called Strange Culture was made about a battle that Critical Art Ensemble had with the FBI, where they were accused of being bioterrorists. We did our release at AK Press Warehouse. We partnered
Oh
with
yeah.
Artmark. Artmark was the precursor to the Yes Men, which now have multiple movies out. You can go watch the Yes Men movies and books, but it was just like a seminal collection of what we were trying to do. Like you had Artmark releasing it, which protected all of the kind of free speech of what we were doing. You had Critical Art Ensemble, which introduced us to a whole new audience of kind of art academics. And then you had, the one maybe regret I have is that it was like a little pushed far with the like child masturbation and stuff. I think we kind of pushed some stuff a little bit further and kind of takes away from the message. But so anyhow, artistically, I think that was like the best.
Yeah. Now, do you think that information, subject matter kind of went over the typical hardcore kid's head? And obviously, you guys caught a little flack from just. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, good, and not because
Yeah.
I'm trying to diss on any hardcore kids, but
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing about Creation's Crucifixion is that we were definitely, as much as we wanted to entertain and have fun and play good shows and stuff. I mean, it was pretty clear by that point of the band that we weren't out to write like catchy songs that were going to get us, millions of fans or whatever. We were doing what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, that was really important. The sort of reward was when we got to play shows and go and hang out with people. But otherwise, I mean, we were trying to work to make something that was new and interesting. And, from the concepts of what we were singing about, what we were talking about, how we were presenting it, bringing in all these different collaborators, they weren't musical at all. To what we were trying to accomplish musically. I mean, that was if nobody liked it, well, I shouldn't say I couldn't have cared less. I still wanted to be able to play shows, and I think we got great opportunities to travel and meet tons of people, and it was a blast. And I wouldn't want to have lost that, but but there were plenty of people in the scene that did get what we were talking about.
Sure.
But it was probably like shit. I mean, if we would have waited like 7 years to come out with the same message, it probably would have been a lot stronger. Especially if we would have had the internet. We didn't. I mean, we booked all of this stuff largely without early
That's what I said. Yeah, it was early days. Early days, right? There was the straight edge list that you'd. I mean, it was early days, and I think like, yeah, I agree. I think like I'm really really proud that we were different. I mean, that's what, when I look back, it's not like we were in a band. Like we were weird, and I think that like being weird, I've carried that through for the rest of my life. I just think it's so important to be distinct. I mean, that's why be average? Why not find something that's going to stand out? And I think, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think everything we talked about is very relevant right now. I mean, we are seriously in a place where we are destroying our planet, and our physical bodies are not capable of traveling to far off planets. So we're going to need to digitize ourselves. I mean, these things they're real. They're not science fiction anymore. And I think, I think like at the time we were probably naive in some of what we were talking about. Paul was the most well-informed. Paul was the most well-read. But I think, people like Mike Williams, our bassist, is a professor at MIT right now in physics. I mean, we were nerdier than the average hardcore band. Like if you listen to our band trips, we might have drank alcohol and stuff along the way, but we were still like, arguing about like physics and like string theory. And
it's like after band practice, there's like a class basically every time.
Yeah, we had like copies of chaos theory and I'm even right now trying to understand quantum mechanics, and I still can't understand it. But I mean, I think we and Paul and those guys played chess every day in the day. We were a nerdy band.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, earlier on there was like maybe a movie sample or maybe a discussion put into your music, and then all of a sudden the noise tracks started to come in. Who presented the noise track and who started like the likes of?
I heard most of that. I'll say that like to me, what I loved about like the noise scene at all was that I loved it. Like I always use this example. There was this one record I remember I bought at Amoeba where it was like etched in cardboard and you couldn't actually play it or you destroy your needle. And I just loved like theoretically the idea that I would buy a record just to destroy my record needle. So I just and I got really into packaging and kind of the branding around. I thought like the noise scene was just so good at branding and so good at like all releases were just so cool. And I just loved like and then, musically, I really did like people like John Cage and stuff. I think who are, again, same thing musically, trying to be a little bit stranger. And I think personally for me, it gave me something to do that didn't feel like because I knew I didn't know how to like sing. So it gave me something else to do, twiddle some knobs. I don't know. Any other thoughts? I mean, we would have an argument sometimes live because I would try to dominate with the noise. And you guys would have to like
the whole show. Like start to end, or afterward.
Go from 3 songs.
Tearing down your stuff and it's still going.
I would argue that the more people were pissed off, the more I wanted to keep doing noise, not play songs.
Yeah. I mean, we did a lot. We did a lot of things live to not play songs. There was always that element of a creation show. For me, I don't know. I guess philosophically speaking, the noise made a lot of sense. With respect to a lot of the lyrical material of the songs.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say, and I didn't author the noise tracks. That was largely Nathan. I don't know. Nick may have helped you early on.
I don't know.
And then Scott. I don't know. I mean, yeah, Scott played the noise live for us for a while. Scott Bricker.
Adam did some stuff. Oh, yeah.
Who did?
Adam McGregor, I think,
yeah,
like probably.
I mean, he's McGregor's like a music encyclopedia.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that wouldn't surprise me. Like if there's one regret I have with the noise was that we, to me, if we could have extended the life of creation a bit longer, that we would have been able to dedicate more time to actually integrating the noise in with the like the guitar riffs and stuff like that. And that's just one thing that
No,
was
I
like
agree.
regretfully we just never really got to do because it was. I don't want to say it was hard, and I don't really remember us ever having like sitting down for hours and trying to figure out how to do it. It was just one of those things to me. It's like, okay, eventually we're going to write all of the, we're going to have albums worth of songs like where the noise is like really makes sense, like based on what we're playing. And Michael and I would jam sometimes in San Francisco where we would just do improv stuff, like we would just improvise for an hour or two. And then I was thinking, man, if we could base this off of noise performance, like some sort of input that we're processing through noise, and then, I mean, yeah, we had like lots of different thinking. Unfortunately, at least in my perspective, we never really glued it all together.
Yeah,
and made sense. So you got this kind of partitions, of like noise song.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think like for me, like I run an experience design company right now, and I always thought about our live shows as like an experience. And I always think about like bands that I love going to see, and hearing a great song is great, but it's the in between moments that kind of make it special. So I always thought about like it's the whole experience of being there live. You're in a moment in time, and what are you going to experience that you're going to remember? You might remember that they played a song great, but you can always listen to the song at home. It's the things that made it special, and I think whether it is like the banter in between, the movement of the band or the noise or whatever. And I like that noise was to some degree uncontrollable. There's this element of like not knowing what was going to happen that made every time special and unique. I don't know. I really, I agree with Paul. I think like we never really finished what Creation probably could have been. It was tough. I mean, it ended because we went on like a 9-month tour. With breaks. That was a long time to spend together. And we all just kind of took a break and never really, I went to grad school and that I think kind of helped to seal the end of stuff. But yeah, I think we should have, if we could have kept going. I think that was a lot of things with Creation. I think we did stuff really early. We were talking about a maker movement before there was a maker movement. There was no such thing. We were just doing stuff really early, and I think you can be too early. There's such a thing. I think we were too early, and if we'd have hung around for 3 or 4 or 5 more years and been able to like figure out what we were trying to do with noise and music and the words and the performances, I think we could have done something much grander than what we'd have done, because we'd have figured out how to just be better at recording, and we'd have figured out what we were trying to do with the band. We were young. I mean, overall, we were pretty young through that whole life of that band.
That being said, so a reunion is thrown out the window right now. Is that for all you guys?
I don't know. I'm always down for whatever, but I'm getting old. I got 2 kids now.
Maybe one more reunion.
Possible. I mean,
Sure.
as long as I can stay in practice.
Always possible. I love it. It's just this pandemic kind of sucks, but
Yeah.
if we could all move to New Zealand, if we just all moved to New Zealand, no.
I also want to give a big shout out to Nathan B, who basically set this. He set this whole thing up. He helped me, guys. I want to say salute for getting so we all can get.
Yeah, Nathan's fantastic. I mean, what an interesting character. We met him kind of in San Francisco. We all moved. You guys can vet me because this is the story I tell, and I don't know if it's right. We were touring around San Francisco, and I remember we like slept on a cliff in Big Sur, which I love. I still love Big Sur to this day. I think Paul and I shared a sleeping bag. At least that's the way I tell the story. I'm not sure. It's correct.
We slept on top of the van or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was
just
cold.
like, we didn't have any.
I just remember it was
cold.
It was freaking cold.
Off the side of the road, and then anyhow, we decided we were going to move to San Francisco, and Chad, who became our bassist, who's still here in Pittsburgh, we recruited him. He'd never really played in the band, right? We just kind of recruited him to join.
Oh, and Chad he went to York with us and stuff.
Yeah, I went to his apartment for like the first time and picked up all his stuff.
In San Francisco, yeah, he was out there.
We drove across country to San Francisco, and in our 15-passenger van, that Ford 15-passenger, And then there was a moment in time when we owned two 15-passenger vans in San Francisco. But yeah, San Francisco was like,
on the way home from tour, I think.
yeah, parking two 15-passenger vans on the streets of San Francisco sucked.
Oh, and I had a delivery van for work, so that was cool.
And we all, we all found places to live. And then we found this apartment that was like a basement apartment converted into 2 bedrooms where 4 people lived. I think Ryan Unks lived on the futon. Mike, you lived on a futon. Paul and I got the
Futon in the
bedrooms.
kitchen.
Half pipe in the backyard. You'd enter the house through the garage of the upstairs tenants. But that was life for a while, and then likewise we kind of all decided we're done with San Francisco, and that's when we worked on this long tour, and it was just kind of the end of the tour. We didn't really have a plan, I think like we just, I don't know, just kind of we didn't have much plan, just kind of ended.
Now, speaking of tours, what were some of your favorite bands that you played with tour that you, like, kind of really memorable bands you got played with on tour?
Calabas.
Memorable for sure.
Definitely the most fun band to hang out with. But you'd never, there would always be some. I mean, those guys made us look so tame. I felt, But before we started hanging out with them, we thought we were like, a bunch of troublemakers. And then we were around those guys. We're like, oh, geez, we're like the adults in the room, for better or worse. I don't know. That's.
I mean, there were so many bands we played with. Like I forget, the ones that we saw or play with. But there were bands that were just cool live. Like you mentioned, Reversal Man, just like cool band live.
That's like we played one show with. That was kind of
singer would duct tape the microphone to his hand. I thought that was super cool. Like there were just things were like cool. And but the bands I remember are the ones we played a lot of shows with, and also like Nerds. Like there was this band we toured with in Europe. I'm gonna get their name wrong. What's the electronic Nerdisneb or I might get there. Nerdisneb who played a bunch of shows with us in Europe, and I don't remember if the guitarist or singer, but one of the 2 duos, he went on to, he's like this senior designer. We talk now. He was at Frog Design for a while, just like a really cerebral dude, and so I remember them a lot. And I think I remember Suicide Nation and that tour well. Good band and like good people, and I think like, I think that those bands you kind of played with a lot, I think became really, I think, meaningful. I mean, Abnegation, it goes without saying. I'm sure Mike's the same way. Like that was, Iggy and Paul were like incredible to watch live, and so much energy that we never, I think, were able to replicate. Like I could never replicate Iggy's intensity. And I think that was really powerful band to ever play with live. And and I look back now and I'm like, I could have the same question. Like there were so few Abnegation releases. I feel like, I look back on it, there weren't that many. I mean, I'm not counting the last, whatever the full length with,
it's all my fault.
Last application thing that I heard or liked was Stones That March Fire. I think Hopes of Harmony. Is that?
Yeah, that song's intense. That song's still intense.
That song is amazing. I love that song so much. And after Iggy left, I was honestly not a fan of Abnegation after Iggy left. So
yeah, it just changed. But
I mean, it was Iggy's brainchild, for sure. But I mean, when I moved to Pittsburgh for school, I was in school. I was in Pittsburgh for school, so it made things a little more difficult with other members of Abnegation that were in Erie. It's only a 2-hour drive, but it's a 2-hour drive.
Paul drove a lot too. Paul
I did drive a lot, but those guys for a while lived in Pittsburgh, but ultimately we just couldn't make it stick. And I mean, one of the reasons why I was attracted to, joining up with Mike and Nathan was because me driving a lot was, that was, there was a lot of other things I was doing too. And these guys really, I felt like they, I could share the load with them, that they were going to be able to contribute in other ways to helping out with the band effort, like, getting the practice spaces and like driving, making sure like everyone had transportation to practice, like just those kind of practical things. With creation, it was always very cooperative in that sense. So it wasn't like, one person was necessarily, I'm sure at certain points, one person was probably shouldering more burden than others, but for the most part, it was very egalitarian, in that way, which, for me, as you start to get a little older, it's like, I got other things I need to be doing too with my life. And, if it's taking me 8 hours or 10 hours a week to do band stuff, if I can cut that down to 2 hours because everyone else is doing some stuff, that's really helpful. Yeah. So that was like definitely one of the attractions for me to join up with these guys.
Michael, I wanted to ask about Cattle Decapitation and how that went for you, and how'd you get into that band? And just curious, because I was always interested in that band, and wondering how you got into that band.
It's also probably around the time we were winding down after that long tour. I think it was. Maybe it was like almost a year later. And I think, Travis kind of hit me up because I think they had a drummer that wasn't able to tour or something, or had some kind of thing come up. So I was kind of like stuck in Pittsburgh just delivering pizzas all the time and living in a really crappy, like roach-infested apartment. So I'm like, like
get me out of there.
I had a relative in San Diego, so I had like cheap rent, and I was like, it's an interesting offer I could play with. Like they were lined up to play some bigger festive metal bands already, so we already toured with them on the West Coast, I think. So I kind of knew them.
Yeah, we'd played several shows with them in Southern California at the time we lived in San Francisco. So they had already seen Mike up close, and
he's hard to
and Nathan B. and Travis were like high school best friends, I
think.
So
true.
They were close, and that San Diego scene is intense. Like, I don't know, tons of bands, all different genres.
Dave Walker-Lechik from Harvest is on here, and he's saying hi to all you guys, and good to see your faces.
Same.
Hello.
I don't know. I feel extremely grateful for being part of like such a cool scene in the 90s and getting to travel and stuff. It's just so hard. I mean, I don't know, Mike, how you feel. You're in a band now. I'm not, but I just feel like it's hard to recreate those moments and that time in your life, in your like kind of early 20s and late teens. It's really instrumental, and it's dictated everything. I mean, even like the company I run is like an extension of the band. I like feel like it's just the next step, and for me, and I think that, I don't know, I just feel really grateful that, and I'm surprised anyone remembers it at all, but it's very nice that they do. But it's, it's just like a really pleasant experience to have had. And I have like, I'm sure you guys do too, but I have like tons of just regrets of different behaviors and things I did. But I was so young. I just was naive and learning and stupid. But I still think like I became a lot of the adult I was going to be through the moments that I spent, with these guys touring and just kind of learning about the world and sometimes learning what not to do. But
I usually do a rapid fire at the end, but I had to ask before I do the rapid fire about the Game Boy hack and who came up with it, all the different languages. Who came up with it?
I think I got it. So that was that came out of this idea of like reclaiming media, the idea of like how can you this is where there's also like a bunch of cryptic history. Like I had this art group called Carbon Defense League that was kind of an art collective at the time, and it was really because I had ideas for things I wanted to do artistically that I couldn't do on my own, and kind of needed to work with engineers, and so I learned how to work with engineers. So a software engineer, Dave Krim, is who actually built and wrote all the code for that Game Boy hack. I worked on the electrical engineering for figuring out how to replace the ROM chip with an EEPROM and stuff. But it was a lot of just kind of the idea at the time was to figure out how to reclaim a tool that's targeting children for activist use. And so, I mean, it kind of came from that art group, Carbon Defense League. But there was a lot of like, I mean, I don't know how for me, I like I said, I have a hard time one, separating pieces of my life. You know, I work with my wife. You know, I met her running and recruited her to my company, and then we worked together for 12 years, and then we got married. I have a hard time separating things. So like, you know, Carbon Defense League and creation, you know, the kind of blurred lines between those two things. And I think that was really, really nice. Everything was, I still take a lot of the elements from that band even to this day. Like we didn't like take, you know, credit individually for stuff. My company might hate that, but I take that today. Like it's a company. You can take credit for everything or nothing, whatever you want, but your individual name doesn't go on it. And I think I think there's something to that I think is, I learned that lesson, you know, being in creation. I think like we always felt like it was something it kind of is like art like that. It's this thing you're trying to build, this thing you're trying to create. Sorry, you said rapid fire, and that's not a rapid fire answer.
Also, is there any creation songs that actually never came that or song like
Yeah, didn't we have a couple songs that never came out?
I think we played like 2 live. They were never recorded, and then we discussed maybe reworking them. But
We had several.
Yeah, I thought there were a few.
There may not have been lyrics to these songs, but there were. Yeah, I mean, and that was part of the problem we were having towards the end. Well, I shouldn't even say towards the end. I mean, we were like, you know, I think as time went on, to, you know, different, like we would have different ideas about like what the new material should sound like. So, you know, and it was, you know, everyone had input. You know, it wasn't like one of us was saying, "Here's the guitar part, and the drums should go like this," and you know, it was a lot more meat grinding than that. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
so yeah, you know, so the stuff that we did, you know, that did end up in songs, I thought was good for the most part. Like, you know, because everyone had to be happy with it at the end, but you know, in the end, but that also, you know, prevented us from putting out a lot of material because. And then, yeah, the sad part is I would go back and listen to old practice tapes, and I'm like, man, you know, like this
Those are good
like,
stuff.
this is pretty good, you know. Didn't make the cut, unfortunately, but you know, that's so. Yeah, there is a lot of unreleased or unfinished stuff, but I think song-wise, I mean, probably if Nathan put lyrics to it, I imagine it was recorded.
Yeah,
Because Nathan would get everything.
Yeah.
Nathan would get it at the end, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't write any music.
now is
He
there
was
any,
writing the noise while we were trying to write the songs. That's why there's so much noise.
now is there any chance you guys would get back into the studio and finish those songs and put something out?
we tried that maybe 5 years ago, kind of like discussing it. I think
I want to do it, so I'm down. I'm big into Bearsville. I have a vacation home in Woodstock, New York, in the Catskills, which I love, and that's where I got married. And Mike and Paul both played at my wedding. It was awesome. But
Chad, I think.
Chad too, yeah.
Yeah.
But they have they just reinvigorated Bearsville recording studio, which is like Bearsville Records is super historic, and lots of great artists recorded there. And anyhow, so they have a recording studio again now. So I'm like, let's go hang out at the cabin and record it in Bearsville.
Somebody just said, wasn't there supposed to be a red chord split on Robotic Empire?
I think there was, yeah. Wasn't there there was also supposed to be a Pig Destroyer split that never came out.
I heard.
Antenna Builder was supposed to be a bunch of things. That's why it took it like 15 years for that to
Yeah,
come
that
out.
song we recorded in Germany or something. That's the song we put the most effort into recording. And I think we probably did the best job recording.
That was as close to getting the noise and music to integrate, I guess, that we ever did.
Yeah, I think we tried on that one.
We actually did noise in the studio, like with the song, like in the noise version of it. Yeah.
The other thing we did on that tour, that Radio Bronca, like pirate radio or whatever, was probably the most authentic, pure
that
noise
was super
we
cool
did as a band.
Yeah,
It's like a CDR
really like that.
or something. Yeah. So there were kind of two things that we did I think were really positive musically on that tour. And then, yeah, I think was that supposed to be the Pig Destroyer split? I can't remember. And then maybe it was a red chord split. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Like a Bastard Noise thing, I think, at one point. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
supposed to be.
And then, and I did a noise thing with Eric Wood afterwards. And I think if I'd love to bring him into the mix if we did something again, Eric Wood.
Yeah, I heard Page 99 too. You guys were going to do a split with Page 99.
Yeah, it could have been that same split.
Oh, we didn't bring up. Yeah, yeah, but back
Great
to your
band.
earlier question about bands that we, really had fun and like playing with. That was, we played tons of shows with those guys, and those are some great times. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there was something in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll start the rapid fire. Hopefully you can hear me, all you guys.
Right now it's good.
My first question is all-time favorite punk hardcore band from New England for you guys.
From New England.
Meaning Boston, Rhode Island, Connecticut.
It is so mine won't really be like underground that much, but like
Corinne was up there, right? I
what?
think Corinne. I think yeah. We played with
Corinne was
Corinne.
up there. I mean, I like a lot of the like Providence, Rhode Island weird bands, like Six Finger Satellite and stuff. But I don't know.
Mm.
I don't consider them much like our genre. But I like a lot of those bands, and yeah, the Providence scene was always really good.
Yeah, I hear a lot of Converge. Converge is a big one that people say. Orchid is.
Less.
Yeah, I actually never liked other like I'm gonna say this term and I hate saying it, metalcore bands much. And that wasn't like to diss them at all. It's just like it wasn't. I mean, at the time, I think we were all over the place. Whether we were listening, like these guys were listening to metal or I was listening to Cat Stevens. I think we liked that we had a lot of divergent interests. So for me, like the bands that I was really into were bands that I thought were, there was something, like I even got into like, bands like Indian Summer for a while. I just like really liked they were doing something different as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I always thought like Michigan always had a really strong scene of just like creativity. So I think that like that creativity scene is really important. That's why I think, Providence had a bunch of like artsy bands, like Airborne Radar and stuff that came out of it that I thought were weird. And I liked bands that kind of split these genres, whether they were indie bands or they were noise bands or whatever. I'm also really proud of this festival we did in Pittsburgh. I think, did we even play it? The Tompkins Square Riot thing?
No, yeah, that was chapter was like broken up, I think, at that point.
Yeah, but it was like a bunch of, it was like, Piebald and Agna Moraine's autobiography and Puritan and like Rent America, like a bunch, like all these bands that you wouldn't normally see all playing together. Ethel Meserve and 400 Years and I don't know. I think it's always, and I think I always loved shows that we played. I think the shows I hated were we played with 5 bands that sounded like us. I think the shows I loved were we played with bands that didn't sound like us at all. I don't know what you guys thought. Again, I'm bad at rapid fire.
Yeah.
It's like one of the shows.
Yeah. This is like the old show days. Like,
it's a good break for grind drumming, though.
Yeah. Paul needs to start playing his guitar, so I shut up.
It was kind of like alarm.
Yeah, to cut me off.
Someone was asking about Hellfest show too for you guys.
Oh, that was awesome.
The outside show?
Play Hellfest? That was awesome. The one we played in the park.
One was like there's a live video up, I think, with Williams still in the band, and then there was like the one we played on a plank of like plywood.
Was that the one we played lit by car headlights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just in some yard at a house.
That one was.
I think it was a year before or the year after that we actually played on the stage. And I don't know if it was at Lost Horizon. It might have been Lost Horizon. But yeah, the one that anyone would remember was this random show that we played like out in a field. It was pretty interesting because there was. Oh, I had like so many weird thoughts about it. We just got back from Europe, and actually a bunch of people from Europe came to the U.S. for Hellfest, and I remember feeling like kind of embarrassed because the city shut the show down for the first day, and these kids had spent all this money to be there.
Yeah.
And I remember how like well organized everything, like smoothly all the shows over there went. And, I'm like, oh, these kids come over here, and like the show is like canceled, and I'm like, oh man, this is terrible, but. Yeah, that was. Oh, and then what? Remember, there was it like the Utah? There were like different Courage Crew factions or something, and like everyone was trying to outmosh each other, because like Hellfest was like where everyone was going to like show how. you know, how true to the scene they were or whatever. And there was definitely some of that going on in this like field where we were playing, and that was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
those type of random things that would happen, you know, in the hardcore scene, you just can't, you know, there's just no replacement for those sorts of stories. I mean,
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, my next question. What was the first punk hardcore show you attended?
Me was 187, which became Passover, Rugburn, and Bungee Jambo. I think it was a local Greensburg show, maybe in like '94, I think.
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't
for
remember.
me it was.
Go ahead.
I want to say it was like probably Face Value from Cleveland. It may have been Integrity, but probably not. Um, and I can't. Oh, geez, if anyone's from Erie is on this, they might kill me because I'm forgetting name. But it was probably a show with the guys from Brothers Keeper before Brothers Keeper, and I'm just blanking on the name of that band. I'm sorry. But we used to have this place called the Continental Ballroom in Erie, and that's where all the shows were back then. And so Iggy from Abnegation and some of the other guys in the scene, whenever bands would be going from, you know, doing like the I-90 circuit, you know, going from Detroit to Cleveland to Buffalo, Rochester, Erie was right there. So we could usually get any bands that were coming through. But I'm pretty sure Face Value was the first band that I saw. That was a great venue too. And I found out later on my grandmother actually worked at the Continental Tire Factory, and the ballroom was like their social room, you know, where they have like events like weddings or birthday parties and stuff. And that's where we, you know, like after the Continental, you know, Rust Belt story, you know, the Continental Rubber Tire Factory's gone, and you know, but we're having punk shows in the ballroom.
Yeah, I don't remember mine, but it's probably Rugburn or something. But my first concert was Public Enemy, and that was more important.
Yeah,
That's a good first concert.
that is a concert. All right, my next question. What was your all-time favorite show you played? Could be a couple.
This is like my memory.
Yeah. I was. These were the parts of the interview that I was afraid of. I was like, should I go do some like homework?
I know. I'm trying to remember.
Like what one, like a memorable one that really meant something to you when you guys played?
Oh God, we played that like we played so many squats in Europe. That one squat where we played where they're like, oh, Henry Rollins used to sleep on the mattress here. I mean, there were a few squats where we played where it was really cool. Oh, I remember the squat that I remember. Maybe you guys remember where in Germany where it's like bombed out building. There was like a water bong that was like disgustingly full of slime. It was like they warned us. They're like, hey, by the way, like the skinheads come by but don't worry, they only come by on Saturday and Sunday nights. We're like, oh, okay, well, what day is it? They're like, it's Saturday. Oh, cool. And it was like you show up and there's more dogs than people that lived in the squat.
It was in Magdeburg. I remember.
That.
It was a compound. As soon as we went into the compound, which was their squat, it was a shopping cart full of like baseball bats.
Yeah, that's where you
and
check your
nightclubs and stuff. No, I mean it was like because if they showed up, you know, everyone went down there and armed themselves. I think for me, I mean, I'm sure like this. I mean, but like one of the coolest shows we played was in, I want to say it was in Karlsruhe, Germany, after we had just done like a month of shows in Europe. And there was this festival, and everyone we saw from all of the shows.
I remember that.
Not everyone. Everyone showed up at the festival. So, and we were, you know, it was like one of our last shows before we went home. So it was really cool to like, it was like this recap of, you know, where we had been and all these people that we had met. And that was such a foreign experience for us. It was really neat, you know, and everyone was like really appreciative that we were there. And the show was like, and everyone had our records at that point. So the show was like bonkers. Awesome. People were, you know, really getting into it. And, you know, that was fun. Thank you, Mark Hartman. I know you're out there.
He's got a PhD now too in something.
Yes, in the U.S. we played this show in Denver. It was in a car repair shop.
Oh yeah!
Wow.
And we played with Calabas, and that show, that was just one of those nights where Yeah, everything was just, the crowd was, it was probably maybe 50 kids or something, but everyone was like raring to go.
Yeah.
And Calabas totally ripped it up. And then we got up there, we're like, okay, we can't like let these guys show us up. And, we had, we played like probably like, a really good set. I don't know, that show was fun. Well, I think one time we played in a boxing ring.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That was super interesting. We played on a half pipe in South Carolina.
Oh yeah, that was good.
I don't know. There's a lot. Unfortunately, yeah, maybe if Unks was on the call, he would have a little bit more to say, because he would probably have all the flyers and then remember all the shows actually.
Mike, what was one of your most memorable ones?
Maybe some of the Michigan fests. I know there were two. They're kind of blending together, but that would be like a lot of hometown people traveling to those, and then just a bunch of bands from like the West Coast would be there that we'd see for the first time, maybe.
Yeah.
That's early on.
My next question: what was your all-time favorite show that you attended that you didn't play? That you went to a show to see a band?
This is like Jeopardy.
I know Nathan and I went to see Cradle of Filth.
Oh yeah, in New York.
First show in the U.S. We drove to New York City. That was when they were still like kind of decent.
Yeah.
Neurosis in '97 was pretty intense with the video stuff in the background.
Ugh.
Getting into them the year before that, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot. A bunch of times when we saw like the Locust play, they were, to me, just again doing the stage theatrics really, really well.
Yeah.
I think that the fact that it was like choreographed, you had kids set out in the audience ready to do things at certain times. Justin Pearson just like knew what he was doing with that band, and I think that was always cool. So I remember them from a couple of fests we played.
Man, I may have to go way back and say Earth Crisis at the first More Than Music Festival in Columbus, Ohio.
Actually,
it wasn't a very PC festival at that point. It was just like basically hardcore. Yeah,
Gone at that fest too was good.
What's that?
This year was Gone at a More Than Music Fest was really good.
Zero's gone for sure.
So great. Okay, my next question. I'm a movie guy. I watch movies all the time. What was the last movie you guys watched?
Yeah. I have kids, so I have a different.
It.
Oh, good.
It might have been Bill and Ted 3 for me, but that was like Christmas of last year. I've been working on houses since then.
Busy. I just made my 4-year-old watch the original Ghostbusters, and I'm working on Goonies.
Oh.
What do you think the new Ghostbusters is going to be like?
I didn't even know there was a new one. No idea. I live in my childhood. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Speaking on movies, what is your all-time favorite horror movie? Or you can give me a couple. It's hard to pin down one.
Nathan used to always wear that shirt too. I think.
I don't know if it's a horror movie per se. It's definitely not like a gore movie, but and it's, I guess it's a bit more contemporary. But I thought Machinist was really good.
The Machinist.
I just don't know if I would necessarily put that. It's definitely not a gore movie. What do you call it, horror? But it's like very, very dark suspense, I guess. But
I used to like movies like Evil Dead and stuff, but I think that I don't know. I think my childhood, that's like, I go back to that. The movies like Amityville Horror, those are the ones I really remember. They're not gory, they're just scary. And I think as you watch them as a child, like Children of the Corn, movies that like really freaked me out when I was a little kid. I think those are the ones that I will always remember. I just think in general, the stuff I experienced when I was 15 to 20, I will remember forever. I can't remember like what I did last week, but I can remember like the song lyrics to the CDs I listened to, in high school for like every fucking song.
Now,
You know what movie I thought was really good, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not a horror movie buff, so I mean, asking me this question's like it would be like asking someone who's never eaten cheese, like, what's your favorite cheese? Like, American cheese. Like, I don't know. But I thought The Ring was really powerful. I thought the idea of basically you had to spread
Spread the virus.
it was it was like a virus. You had to spread it, and I think that's and you had to do it on purpose, knowing like that you were going to infect somebody with this problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, that kind of thing, like, I don't want to say that we live those types of things every day, but in a way we kind of do. I thought that was that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that movie. I'll say.
It's like, is Idiocracy a horror movie? Because that's super scary, and that's coming to reality now.
Now, didn't you guys have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre sample in
I did like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Wasn't there a sample in one of the songs on the
Probably, but also there was like a Never-Ending Story sample somewhere along the line too, which is an awesome movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
There was also a sample from Seven, which I think every hardcore band sampled.
We saw, I think Chapter saw Seven in the theater together. I kind of remember that.
We saw Blair Witch Project together, didn't we? When we were stranded somewhere.
It broke down on tour. Yeah, that.
Yep.
And Independence Day, I think.
And
that was or when I nearly killed everyone.
I think Blair Witch Project was before. It was after we all like almost ran off the road.
I think we're past the statute of limitations.
Maybe.
We had to rent a van for that tour. Paul was the only one old enough to actually rent from Affordable Auto. I found the letter. Remember that one? I actually found the letter the other day from an attorney when I was going through some stuff in my parents' house. But we rented this van. It was a disaster, like bald tires. And I fell asleep at the wheel, and we went off the road with both Abbott.
It was like family vacation, like jumping the median, basically.
Oh, yeah. It was the morning
tires.
hours on the way to that Minneapolis Punk Fest. We were almost there, too. And, I mean, I woke up halfway through driving, going down this median. We nailed all those sewer grates and stuff, and the car was destroyed. The control arm was bent, and I think didn't Mia get hit with a guitar?
No, no. I think Dave Steele was injured a bit.
Someone had.
He was sitting up front with you. No, I remember because we didn't have a loft in this van. It was just a straight up 15 passenger with with a third seat in the back, which normally if it was our van, that would have been a loft.
Yeah.
But the way we packed the van, I remember the it was a Sovtech amp. And those things were freaking heavy.
The bricks. Yeah.
And it was hanging right over our heads by the time we stopped. And I was like, oh my God, man.
I mean,
it would have.
Bad.
I think our one guitar bent the bench seat, I think. Chapter guitar.
We were very lucky. And we ended up, we'd replace a tire, drive it a little bit, and we cut the tire. We made it to the festival. And then eventually we just, we had to basically vacate the van. We left it in, I guess,
Wisconsin. I think your parent, a couple parents had to get U-Haul trailers and
Michigan.
Pick us.
Yeah.
No, it was in Wisconsin, I think.
Dan Deemer was
I think we left it. No, we left it in Michigan.
Dan Deemer was in the band. Was that right?
It was Chapter.
It was Chapter. That's right. That was Chapter Abnegation, and Dan Deemer
that was my first tour.
was our guitarist who he later committed suicide. But Dan's dad or stepdad and my dad drove out to pick us up in Wisconsin, however far that is from Pittsburgh. And,
wow,
12 hours or something. Yeah.
It was. They picked us up and we were in Michigan.
Oh, we were in Michigan.
We made it back to Michigan. Yeah.
That was.
I'm sure.
And then we had this lawsuit.
Because I remember it was a 5-hour drive or so. It wasn't the drive wasn't
that bad.
Huge, but.
Yeah, but we had a lawsuit we had to deal with, and it was that was actually that's the whole thing. And then Tim Krupar's dad was our lawyer. He was a dentist or something, or an optician, and he had traded services with a lawyer. So that guy decided to be our lawyer. This is a cryptic side story, but it was just went on for a couple of years, and poor Paul was on the paper, and I was the one that wrecked the van, but got out of it.
Speaking of samples, is there a Ghetto Boys sample in the beginning of one of the songs?
I wish there was. No, there is not.
Oh, is it big? Is it Biggie?
Is
Is it Biggie?
I thought I swear to God it was Scarface on. I think it's on Dethrone or Devour.
Yeah, I thought that was Biggie, but I could be. I'd have to go back and listen to it.
Yep.
Oh,
I mean,
what
that
is
was
the
definitely a
sample?
Nathan sample, but
Yeah, we have a sample if you play a record backwards. What one's that? Oh, we have a sample from a really good movie. Wait, what is it from? Which record? One of them you play backwards. It says "Life is short, life is shit, and soon
Oh,
it'll
right.
be over." Which
Yep.
is why can't I remember what movie that's from? It's from Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Life is short, life is shit, and soon it will be over.
Nice.
I don't remember what record you play backwards, but that's somewhere.
All right, I only have
play them all backwards until you find it.
Yeah.
I have two more questions for you guys. If you've been listening to hip hop, I'm a big hip hop guy. What have you been listening to lately for hip hop, whether it be new stuff or old stuff?
I would say it was last year. I was listening to a lot of Ghetto Boys and old Ice Cube.
Mm.
But I mean, and the only reason I went back to that stuff is that stuff I used to listen to like when I was in high school. And I don't know, I was on Spotify one day and I was like, well, I can, like, I'm sure I bought this record at one point in time.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
yeah, I really liked Ice Cube's Death Certificate when I was
Yeah.
a kid. That was a big influence on me. And I gotta say, I love the Ghetto Boys too. Just
yeah, me too. Me too. How about you guys? If you've been listening to hip hop,
My current road, I mean, I'm like Paul. Like, I still listen to things like Public Enemy, and I still like Ghetto Boys, but I don't listen to. But my music taste is very eclectic. Like God, I mean, I can listen to like Hall and Oates, or I can listen to Cat Stevens, or I can listen to Neil Young or whatever. Or I think that like I just like diversity in music. And I also don't listen to any new music. I don't think at all.
that has been a problem for me as well. I mean, every once in a while, and I'm not against it. I mean, like metal wise, Animals as Leaders was one of like the bands that I discovered, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something, which is like new to me. But that was of the new generation of bands that I thought was just like mind blowingly good. But I'm sure there's tons of other of them out there, and I just like don't know who they are.
Yeah, I will say that like a few years ago, I was able to meet Wayne Coyne of the Flaming Lips, and I and kind of became friends with him. And I think I have a ton of respect for the Flaming Lips. If I think about a band that did exist well beyond, can still goes today, I just think they keep being extremely clever and just impressive live shows. And I've been able to do some collaborations with them. And I think like, I think every time I've seen them live, they still just blow me away. And Wayne Coyne is like 60 plus years old, but so I just think Wayne and the Flaming Lips are just still an incredible band that I listen to. And yeah.
what about you, Mike? Any hip hop listening?
Maybe Deltron 3030. I probably listen to it, like on occasion still. Public Enemy. Actually, I saw Deltron 3030. It's like there was a tour and a new album like a few years ago.
Yeah, I had just seen Hieroglyphics, and I got to meet Dell and take a picture with him just like probably 2 years ago before the pandemic kind of hit.
Cool.
That was good to do because I've been videotaping shows since 1988. I'll be 50 in January, so I'm kind of an old school.
Oh, nice.
That's been around for a long time. So, like I said, I was lucky enough to record you guys in Rochester, New Hampshire, and then I made sure I jumped to Lawrence, Massachusetts, and saw you guys after that. So it's just been, I'm always in the scene, talking to everybody. It's been really fun. One more question.
You're cutting out. You cut out right now. What was that again? One more question.
Yeah, one more question.
Yep.
Favorite song to play live for you guys for creation?
Maybe Child Autonomous, because it's like so hard to like keep up on it, like to barely hit everything on it. It's just a challenge.
Yeah, that might. I mean, that might be mine as well. That one's
And
fun
then
because it's got some. I mean, there's some technical stuff. You know, lots of like some sort of runs and pull offs, but then it's got like some nice like, you know, chunky parts where you don't have to think that hard and you can just kind of have fun.
then
You
you
know,
also
Gutter
stuff
Tech
like
would be another one.
Yeah, or the songs people sing along to.
Predator
that
Prey.
they kind of know.
Predator Prey.
Yeah.
Predator Prey is great. It's just really hard to play.
Nathan, what about you?
I think Predator Prey was one of my favorite. I agree. Like, I think the ones that like where we simplified and had some kind of like chorus lines. You know, I live and die by the code. I think those are ones that you know were always fun to play.
Yeah. Data Body was one of my favorites.
Yeah, the crowds always dug that one.
Yeah, Data Body is great, but like Data Body was tricky, like to play. I mean, you could. There was that one clean part. I mean, like if you. So for me, it wasn't like I ever felt like totally comfortable playing it. Yeah, like I had to concentrate. You know, there are times like, okay, like I got to really make sure.
Yeah.
You know, when this part comes on, that like everything's gonna stop. It's just me, and yeah, like those are the parts you don't want to screw up.
I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry if I cut out, but
We forgive you.
Honestly, big fan of all you guys. And I want to say thank you so much. And it's been awesome. And I was super stoked to talk to all you guys, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for doing
Thank
this, Hal.
you.
I think yeah, I haven't seen Paul and Mike's faces in a while, so this is like
Yeah, that's true. So
seriously, let's go up to Woodstock sometime.
I'm using all my
Alright.
time now to from 2 houses apparently, so
Yeah,
maybe
Paul.
in a couple of years.
Hal, thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, this is really cool, especially with the pandemic, because I mean, you know, we see each other few and far between anyway. But you know, in the last, since this has
18
all
months
started,
of
we
this
definitely
thing.
haven't seen each other. So you know, thanks for giving us this really cool reason to get together, and thank you for your insightful questions, and thank you for your contributions to the scene over the years. I mean. You know, like it's really helpful and cool that like, you know, people like you are documenting these things. You know, because you know it's really easy to just sort of let it all go, and then you know, all of this cool stuff that you know that we did and experienced is just kind of evaporates. You know, without people like you. So thank you very much.
Oh, I want to second that too. I mean, I think that the you know, I think about those early days when like not everyone had an iPhone, you know, and how rare that documentation, people like you shooting film at shows, and how much I value that now. It's like I'm really, you know, it just wasn't that much documentation of what was going on, and it's not that, you know, any of these bands like changed the world, but they changed the world of the people that were in it, and I think it's so nice to be able to relive those moments through that documentation. So just, you know, thank you retroactively for your, you know, 25 plus years of just kind of helping document, you know, bands like ours.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. And also, you guys have those songs hidden on the shelf. I'd love to hear it. Like, think about it. You guys are all together right now. So,
There could be a live video of one, I think. I don't know what to
I don't
see
know.
what's there.
I think you need Adam McGregor to get involved here. He's the one that'll unearth them. I still have a box of like ADATs and stuff here that he wants from ages ago. I don't even know how to play an ADAT, but
all right.
Hey, shout out to Steve.
All right, guys. Thank you so much again, and definitely keep in touch. And I hope you guys have a great night, and stay safe out there.
thanks. You too.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Hal.
All right, guys.
See you, Hal.
Bye.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye, guys.